the ultrasound tech person was like, uh-oh. First of all, I was like, don't they train you not to say uh-oh during an ultrasound? Because that really scared me. But she said, uh-oh, there's another one in there. Oh, there's 3. Oh, wait, I think I see 4. Oh, no, it's just 3. I was still like, this is insane. You can't eat meat. This guy's like an outlier. I got to do more research. And then I went down the rabbit hole of research and watching YouTube videos from other people that had done carnivore and doctors like yourself. And honestly, I really don't think I would have started if it wasn't for you and the other good doctors out there putting the truth out there. If I lose 12 more pounds, I'll be down 100 total from my heaviest. So it's just, I'm getting the work done of 3 of my former self on carnivore because I'm making better decisions, but I don't get tired like I was before. Before I was just fatigued and napping all the time. So this current generation of children, none of them know what it's like to be healthy.
Okay, guys, good morning. Happy Thursday morning. Hope everyone is doing well today. We have a special guest. Kerry's here with us today. Kerry, good morning. How are you today? And where are you located?
Good morning, Dr. Baker. I'm doing great. I'm located in Montello, Wisconsin, central Wisconsin. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I wanted to thank you for that, but I also wanted to thank you just in general for everything you do because carnivore diets completely changed my life. And you're one of the original, obviously. You've written the book on it. So I really appreciate everything you're doing out there.
Personally, I appreciate the feedback, and it's always kind to hear good words about it, and it helps to inspire me to continue doing what I'm doing because I think we're doing a good thing here. So up in Wisconsin, I think I've been to Wisconsin a few times when I was a little kid, a long time ago, but haven't been there in many years. I guess we'll just start with your background. How'd you grow up? What was it like? Tell us what you do, that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess since high school, I'm 42 years old now. So since high school, it's been about 24 years. I've always been overweight, obese, and I've had so many health problems leading up until now. So I've been struggling with a lot of health battles throughout the years, as well as my family has also. I guess in terms of more recent times and what I'm doing now, I've been on carnivore diet now. I just hit day 115. And I've been doing the lion diet version of carnivore for 27 days now. And like I mentioned earlier, it's completely changed my life, completely improved everything in my life. And it's changing my family's life as well, which has been an amazing sort of side effect of the whole thing. I guess in terms of other things going on with me, I'm actually in the basement right now of our movie theater. My wife and I, and my 4 girls, we purchased our small town movie theater here in Montello. We're coming up on 1 year. So we've been learning how to run a movie theater while doing the carnivore diet and also meeting a lot of really cool carnivores that have been coming into the theater. My wife and I have triplets +1. So I guess that's another unique thing to my story. Our triplets just turned 16 2 days ago. And then we have an 18-year-old daughter as well. So we got 4 girls. And the majority of my family now is carnivore. It took some time, but they're all coming over slowly.
That's interesting. Triplets, that's not very common. I don't know what the incidence is, but I'm sure it's 1 in several 100,000 births between triplets. And so were 2 of them identical and one fraternal, or were they all different looking kids?
They were all different, but it was very rare, as you said, and it was very unexpected. We don't have multiples in our family. And for some reason, my wife, Jen, we found out at the ultrasound at 5 months. And when my wife was pregnant, everyone would always ask you, like, oh, what do you want, a boy or a girl? Everyone that asked me that question, I was like, I don't know, but I just have a feeling there's more than one in there. And people were like, why did you say that? And I said, she's twice as moody as she was with the first pregnancy. So she was pretty grumpy. But we found out at the 5-month ultrasound, and the ultrasound tech person was like, uh-oh. First of all, I was like, don't they train you not to say uh-oh during an ultrasound? Because that really scared me. But she said, uh-oh, there's another one in there. Oh, there's 3. Oh, wait, I think I see 4. Oh, no, it's just 3. And my first question was, are they all healthy? Is everything okay? And thankfully they were, and thankfully they have been. But yeah, triplets are born at 32 weeks. So I think my youngest, Katie, she's just a little over 2 pounds, and she had to stay in the hospital for about a month or so. But thankfully they're fine, all very healthy. So
yeah, that's anytime you have the multiples, it increases the complication rates, and it's good to hear they all turned out well because it seems like it's cool to have that, but at the same time, it can be a scary process, as I'm sure you guys went through that. So I understand you do some homesteading as well. I guess that's one of the things that you've been talking about. You said you're in Wisconsin right now. What directed you into doing the carnivore diet in the first place?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, it's been 115 days for me. What started me on carnivore was all my health issues. I had just so many health issues. So at my heaviest, I was nearly 100 pounds heavier than I am today. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. I was on a CPAP machine for many years. I had IBS and acid reflux. I had just horrible clinical depression for years and years. I was on every SSRI they could prescribe, and none of those really did anything for me. Really bad anxiety, diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome as well. And one of the worst things that kind of finally pushed me more towards carnivore was I've had this pain in my foot, and they thought it was gout, and it went on for about 18 months. It was in my right toe, and it was excruciating. It hurt so bad I could barely put any weight down on my foot. Felt like I had a fractured bone. My dad has gout. I went to the doctor. They did the uric acid level test, and it was slightly off. He's like, yeah, you probably definitely have gout. Gave me a bunch of meds. I did that for a couple of months, no relief whatsoever. Then he upped the dosage. Then he changed the dosage. And long story short, for 18 months, I was on every medication you could have for gout with increasing dosages of it. And it did nothing. And it was to the point where last year, I wasn't hardly doing anything. I could barely even walk around. I was just wincing in pain every time I'd step down on my foot. I finally saw my third or fourth foot specialist. And this guy was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you actually don't have gout. Your toe's just full of arthritic fluid. There's lots of inflammation. And he wanted to do surgery where they basically, it was a pretty major surgery where they were going to cut my toe open. And that was the last step. I'm like, I was watching YouTube and I saw a video from a gentleman named Dante from Frigno Freedom. And he was just starting carnivore diet. And so this was his video was dated from a couple of years ago, and he was just starting carnivore diet. And I was like, this is insane. I have done keto on and off for years, and I had some good success with keto, but the thought of eating solely meat for an extended period of time was just insane to me. I was like, there's no way this is sustainable. This isn't healthy. But then here I saw Dante on YouTube, and he was just starting out. And I saw that the video was from 2 years ago, and I was being really cynical. I was like, oh, this is 2 years old. There's no way 2 years later he's still doing this. So I quickly went to his channel. I found his latest video that he just done recently. And the man was completely transformed, lost like 100 pounds, built a bunch of muscle. Just his face, his smile, his demeanor, everything, his mood was completely improved. And I was like, I was still like, this is insane. You can't eat meat. This guy's like an outlier. I got to do more research. And then I went down the rabbit hole of research and watching YouTube videos from other people that had done carnivore and doctors like yourself. And honestly, I really don't think I would have started if it wasn't for you and the other good doctors out there putting the truth out there, because it's so scary. It's like my entire life I've been told, eat your vegetables. Meat's going to clog your arteries. You're going to die of a heart attack if you eat meat. And I had all these things going into it. So I'm like, there's no way. But I was so desperate at that point and in so much pain. I'm like, I viewed it like this. I'm not going to eat meat for 30 days. That's insane. I'm going to do an elimination diet. I'm going to get rid of all that other garbage I was eating and see how I feel, because something's got to be causing my IBS and my acid reflux and all this inflammation. Besides my toe, I had it in my back and my elbows. And it turns into a new normal. So I would walk around for months and years with just not getting any good sleep and with brain fog. And with every time I would eat, I'd have a stomach ache, and it would get to the point where it's just, I guess this is just how I feel now. And it felt normal. But so anyhow, I went down that rabbit hole and I was like, I'm out of desperation. I'm going to start carnivore diet. I'm like, I could do anything for 30 days. This shouldn't be that bad. And I started it. And within the first day, I've told this to people and they say it's unbelievable, but I've heard other people say the same thing. The most amazing thing for me was within the first day, I stopped snoring. And that was life-changing for me. My wife used to just punch me in the stomach every night, like, you're snoring so loud. I was on the CPAP machine. I would literally almost die at night. My breathing would stop over and over again, countless times throughout the night. And the first night, and maybe this was because I'd done keto and I transitioned into it, but I think it was due to having no more inflammation. When I was on the CPAP machine earlier, I remember I was way heavier, and the doctor said, you got to lose a lot of weight. Well, a lot of that's because I have a big fat neck and I got to drop some of it. So I always thought in my head it was just being fat and it's going to take months to lose all the fat and then I'd stop snoring. But for me, that wasn't the case. It was the inflammation within one day. So I've heard like Dr. Jordan Peterson say within a week he stopped snoring. I've heard other people report that too. But in my opinion, that was one of the most life-changing things for me. A lot of people want to do carnivore to lose weight, of course, but I think sleep is one of the most important things. I've noticed over the years, like when I say I had clinical depression, I had horrible suicidal depression. We used to have this detached garage and it had a wood shop with no windows in it. I used to just sit down in that wood shop for hours and hours in the dark by myself because I just couldn't bear to be around my children, my girls. I was just a miserable, depressed person. It's just the deepest level of sadness. I always encourage people, if you haven't had depression before, you got to be sensitive to it. Because a lot of people will be like, oh, you just got to go out and go for a walk. You'll feel better. But this was the kind of depression where you can't even stand up or do anything. Anyhow, I really think over the years, I noticed when I started dabbling with keto, or I did a 3-day and a 5-day water fast, when I started getting my sleep back, the depression and anxiety would go down. I don't know if there's science behind that or if it's just a coincidence, but when I started sleeping better the first week on carnivore, it was one of the most amazing things for me. On like day 3 or 4, I remember waking up so relaxed, so rejuvenated. My legs just felt like they were heavy. I remember I was telling my wife, I was like, I feel like a kid again on Saturday morning when you'd sleep into like noon and your whole body's just like dead and rested. And you wake up, just jump out of bed with energy. The crazy thing was that was the first week. It's been 115 days. Every single night for 115 days, my sleep has been amazing, just like that. I'm writing things down because I don't want to take this for granted or have this sort of be my new normal.
That's awesome. That's wonderful to hear. And obviously, so your maximum weight was what? And then where are you at today? What's the difference in weight change?
Sure. My heaviest was 262. I remember that day vividly because I was at a doctor's appointment, and being a fat person, I'm not shaming myself. I can call myself fat, right? When I was fat, I was like, didn't like to have my picture taken, always covered up, and I definitely was avoiding scale. So I hadn't been on a scale in a long time, but it was at a doctor's appointment. It's actually in my medical charts. It was 262. My jaw just dropped that day. I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know I went that far. And right now, today, I'm at 174. If I lose 12 more pounds, I'll be down 100 total from my heaviest. So I didn't lose 100 on strictly carnivore. I lost maybe 30 or 40 pounds yo-yoing on keto for years, on and off and gaining it back. But I've lost the hardest pounds for sure on carnivore.
Yeah, that's awesome regardless. I think anybody that loses that much, it's a problem that we get up that heavy because you think about it, in no time in history have we had so many people that had 100 pounds to lose or 200 pounds to lose or 300 pounds to lose. And now that's not that uncommon. So that's a real, I think, a breakdown in the healthcare system, in the food system, and other things contribute to that. But I am continually amazed to see the people that actually overcome this stuff. And the mainstream answer is, well, it's genetic and you can't do anything about it. Here's a drug. And I think that's unfortunate that we're seeing that. How did you get into homesteading? Where does that come in from? Because that's not the road everybody takes. Most people live in their apartment or their house in the suburbs. And how did you get into homesteading?
Yeah, I've always been a little unusual. I always take the path other people avoid and do things a little bit differently than others. 8 years ago, my wife and I were living more in the city, and it seems like anytime you get back to nature or natural, everything in life is better. We were living in the city and it was busy and there was cars honking their horns and lots of congestion and things like that. And we found this property, and I was very fortunate and blessed because I work from home, so we could live anywhere. But we found this property. So we're in Montello now, which is about a half hour north of Madison, out in the sticks. The population's 1,400 here. Like I mentioned, I'm in the small town movie theater. It's a really small town. We got one stoplight. But we found this property, and it was 20 acres. And YouTube again inspired me. I'd watched some other folks on YouTube that were homesteading, and I've always liked, especially on carnivore now, but I've always liked farm fresh eggs. We wanted to have our own chickens, which we couldn't have at our old place. So we found this place, and it was a major fixer-upper. I think 200 people looked at our house and nobody wanted to touch it. It was sitting for 2 years. So we got a good deal on it, especially in today's terms, but we had to put a ton of work into it to make it even livable. And one of the first things we did, my first YouTube video, this was 8 years ago, I was building our chicken coop. And then we went on to build a goat coop, and we got a bunch of goats and chickens, built some greenhouses. And that's what I've done for a living for the last 8 years. So we started documenting that on YouTube. So it's been mostly homesteading videos, but we've strayed away from the homesteading a little bit lately, because when we bought our movie theater a year ago, we started doing a bunch of behind the scenes, like we're opening a small town movie theater. Here's the crowds, we're running things. That's been really fun. And now once I hit day 30 on Carnivore, I'm like, I got a homesteading channel. There's lots of people talking about Carnivore. I'm like, I'm going to just do my 30-day update video on Carnivore. And so I did that video, and it really resonated with people. I think it has almost 800,000 views now. But the views aside, I really honestly don't care about that. It's that the comments have been just insane. People saying, your video inspired me. I started Carnivore 50 days ago or 30 days ago, and it's completely changed my life. I can sleep at night. My depression's gone. Literally thousands and thousands of comments. And been doing more Carnivore videos for that reason, updating folks. And then along the journey, as we're still homesteading, we still do the homesteading videos. My daughter Emma and I just built this huge wood shed. So we heat our entire property off grid. We have this outdoor wood burner. So we heat our property and all of our water with firewood that we have to collect. So my daughter Emma, who, by the way, was a vegan for 5 years ago, and she's a carnivore for 65 days now. She went from strict vegan, eating like basically cauliflower every night, to carnivore, and it's completely changed her life too. She helped me build the woodshed, and we cranked that thing out. I have this new saying, Dr. Baker. I'm like, carnivores don't get sunburn. Carnivores don't take breaks. Carnivores don't get tired. One of the things we built this woodshed before Carnivore, it would have taken me probably 2 weeks just being out there every single day. We built this thing in 3 days, and it's just, I'm getting the work done of 3 of my former self on Carnivore, because I'm making better decisions, but I don't get tired like I was before. Before I was just fatigued and napping all the time. So it definitely helped with the homestead projects, because we're really busy. We just did a big project grading our driveway and putting stones down and leveling everything out. So always lots to do at the homestead for sure.
Yeah, I imagine it's a never ending thing, particularly when you're having to, I guess, maybe feed yourself and heat your own stuff and, I don't know, water collection, things like that. It's the movie theater? How did that come in? When you're sitting in a movie theater basement, where did the idea say, hey, we're going to buy a movie theater and start doing that? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I'm still pinching myself that it happened. It's amazing. My wife and I just we got Mission Impossible, the new movie, last night. We were sitting out in the theater after the big rush, watching it with people. I'm like, do we really own this little movie theater? It's just a single screen movie theater, but there's so much history here. The building, it looks modern behind me, but the building goes back to 1859. Before Lincoln was president, this building was here, and there were plays and shows. It was one of the first buildings here in the town. But we started coming here when we set up our homestead 8 years ago. One of the first things we did, I've always loved movies, was like, let's go check out this little small town theater. And I'm like, it's going to probably be junky. You only got one screen. Like we don't really have a choice in the movie we see, but we came to it and we fell in love with it. The owner was really nice. The sound, the video was all just on par with the modern movie theater you'd go to. We have a newer projector upstairs, and the sound system's amazing. And the prices were great too. It was really like a family friendly movie theater. The previous owner ran it for 20 years. She kept the ticket prices at just $5, which is half the national average. And when we took over almost a year ago, we vowed to keep it the same. We have a lot of seniors that come in and young families that can't afford to spend $200 going to the theater by the time they get their concessions and everything. But anyways, I told the owner, we started coming in a couple of times and doing my YouTube stuff. I said, hey, you should really, one of the ways you could support the theater is if you put some ads on the screen, like some local business ads, that could be some good revenue for you, because she's just barely getting by charging $5 a ticket. She said, I don't know how to do that, but if you can figure it out, let's do it. And one of the things my wife and girls did on our homestead to support the homestead, besides YouTube, was we built a 4-stall dog kennel. It's completely off grid. We built it ourselves. It's run on solar power. And we got people that vacation and they'll leave their dogs for the weekend, and we'll take them for walks through the woods and stuff like that. I wanted to do a commercial on the Montello screen above me through the previous owner. So I was like, I'll film the commercial. I got a lot of video experience, and I'll figure out how to get it on the projector. And long story short, I was able to do that, got it on the projector, and became friends with the previous owner. I just said to her, this is probably never going to work out because I don't know how we would ever afford to do it. But if you ever think of selling the theater, please keep me in mind. several years went by, COVID happened. The theater completely shut down for COVID for a couple of years. Sadly, so many people were just dying to get back in here. And the previous owner she'd done it for 20 years. Opening back up, it was a huge expense because you have to get all these contracts with all of the studios. And so she emailed me and said, hey, I'm thinking about selling the theater. Do you want it? And we were able to work out an arrangement. And the craziest thing with that whole story too was years ago was when I planted this little seed with her. And foolishly, I told one of the triplets, Alyssa, I said, I told the theater owner I'd love to buy the theater someday. It's never going to happen, but I drive Alyssa past the theater every single day to go to school, and literally every day for 3 years. When are we going to buy the theater? Are we going to buy the theater now? When are we going to get the movie theater? So it is cool when it finally ended up happening. And now Alyssa works in the concession area. Every single night we have a movie now. So it's been fun. But yeah, I planted that little seed and then it worked out. It's been amazing. It's been amazing ever since. We're only open weekends during winter, but during summer, we've been open every single day, excluding Mondays. And yeah, it's just been wonderful.
That's a neat little story for sure. I guess going back to, you said you got one of your daughters who was vegan is now transitioned to carnivore. Let me ask you, because you said at the beginning, I was under the impression that meat is bad for us. It clogs our arteries. Vegetables are essential. Where did that come from? Where do you think you got that from?
My entire life being sold sugar and junk food and garbage. And I'm having these carnivore epiphanies afterwards. I've said it many times on my channel, but it's like when you're in the fog, you can't see the fog. And when you get out of it, you can finally see it. And that is so true. I keep realizing these things. Like one thing I've thought about this question, you just asked me a lot. One thing I remember hearing my whole life is breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And then my whole life, I was like, I'd get ready to go out to work or something. Like, I got to grab something. And it would always end up being something horrible and junky, like a Pop-Tart or some sugar cereal or something like that. But in my head, I was always like, yeah, my grandma told me that. My mom told me that. You'd go visit family. Like, you got to eat some breakfast. You got to have something. Now, in retrospect, I realized that was completely sponsored by the cereal industry. Why not? Gets people to eat a lot of cereal and sugar and garbage. And so I think where I got that from was just being told this stuff my entire life. A lot of times by people that mean or that were confused themselves. But that was one of the big sort of epiphanies, was this breakfast is the most important meal of the day, because I would just take it for granted. Now, the other thing too, that I would just listen to and think, oh yeah, that's just true. I've heard it so many times, it's got to be true. The other thing was all of these studies I've heard over the years, whether it's on the news or social media or all these things. When I used to hear a study like meat's going to clog your arteries or something like that, I would always think in my head, I never put the thought into it. In my head, I'm always like, studies, that's science. These people are out for our well-being and they're out for our best interests and they're looking out for our health. And that's the only reason these studies. Now I'm like, how foolish was that? Obviously I'm not an expert on this, but from what I understand now, almost every study out there, with the exception of maybe a few, are hugely biased because they cost millions of dollars to do a study. And they're only going to do a study if some medical company can make a pill at the end that's going to make them billions of dollars, or if there's some cereal company or someone trying to make a bunch of money off of it. I don't really think I was correct before when I would just assume, oh yeah, every study that they talk about on the news is there for my well-being. So listening to all of that stuff over the years, and I don't know how many times I've heard the phrase that meat is going to give you a heart attack or it's going to clog your arteries. That was one of my biggest hurdles to overcome doing carnivore. And the reason I really dug in and did a ton of research, watched videos from you, Dr. Baker, and other folks on YouTube, whether they're individuals or other doctors sharing some truths. Like when you really get down to it, it's like, what's the truth of some of these matters? And once I was able to figure out those truths and wrap my brain around them, it was a lot easier for me to eventually start carnivore. I was saying this to my wife the other day. This was my other carnivore epiphany. This is probably for so many people out there, but the sugar industry, if you really think about it, like I was Googling this the other day because I was just interested to see, it was like, what's the biggest industry out there? And if you Google it, they say tech. I'm like, I guess everyone's got phones and they're into technology, but I really think if you look at sugar closely, it's the biggest industry. When you account for the fact that sugar is in literally every single thing we eat, you go to the grocery store, all of those companies are making money because they have sugar in their food. Without sugar, they probably wouldn't be selling it. And so if you want to sell a lot of sugar, this was the other thing. It just drives me nuts. And Dr. Baker, you said this, you were on Intentional Carnivores podcast the other day, really hit home to me, but how sad it is that this current generation of children None of them know what it's like to be healthy. None of them. It's such a sad thing. And then the fact that even myself in the 80s growing up, you turn the TV on and it's just commercials for sugary cereal and junk food. And we're getting children hooked on an addictive drug. Sugar is an addictive drug that I was addicted to and that I've overcome and I'm never going to eat again. But we get them hooked from a young age, and then you get inflammation and you have all of these issues, and then it becomes normal. And yeah, it's unbelievable. But this was my big epiphany. Sorry, long story short was, if you want to sell a lot of sugar, sure, you can advertise and get kids hooked young. But one of the best ways to sell an incredible amount of sugar is just demonize meat and tell everybody meat is going to clog your arteries and put millions and millions of dollars into everything that makes meat look bad. And what alternative are we going to have? Because when I said, I should avoid that meat, I end up eating a bunch of carby, junky, processed, sugary foods.
Yeah, I think effectively that's what happens. If you look at the guidelines, are not saying everybody carby junk food, but the reality is when you don't get energy and nourishment and satisfaction from things like meat, you're not going to get it in broccoli and cauliflower and lentils. You're just not going to get that energy need. And so people often will go on to these just ridiculously awful foods for sure. Let me ask you I want to delve a little more into your carnivore experience. So 115 days, first thing, I stopped snoring within a couple of days. My sleep got better. And as you mentioned, sleep is so incredibly important to our overall sense of well-being and overall health. We know when you don't get good sleep, bad things happen. We become more insulin resistant. We have just higher heart disease, earlier mortality, all those things when we don't get good sleep. What other things have you seen? You said you lost something like, 50, 60 pounds more on carnivore. Any other things you notice with, I don't know, cognitive? I guess you mentioned you can work harder, skin health, joint pain, any digestion. A lot of people talk about their digestion get better. Any differences there on any of those things?
Yes, every single one of them. So the depression and anxiety was one of the big ones. Once the sleep got better, I think like around day 30, I started noticing I'm not anxious anymore. And I had very bad anxiety before. I would have phone calls I would never be doing this. I used to have phone calls with clients. I would get just the worst anxiety to the point where I'd be like, I could just lightly crash my car into a tree and then I wouldn't have to talk to this person on the phone later today. I have none of that on carnivore. And before this, the depression, like I mentioned earlier, I had clinical depression. I was on every SSRI for years and years. None of those things even barely did anything. They made me feel more like a zombie, and I was able to get through the day, but just emotionless and no ups or downs or anything. And it was just a horrible way of living. I'm not on any of those on carnivore, and my mood is a million times better than it was before. So improved mood, zero anxiety. And then on the cognitive side, I said this on my video, but I watch Jeopardy every day. And when I started doing carnivore, I noticed, man, I'm just killing it on Jeopardy. The brain just functions so much differently, I feel, on carnivore. It's like giving it the proper fuel. I'm not sure, but the biggest thing I noticed is I don't have brain fog anymore. Prior to this, I would constantly be searching for my words. I'd be stammering. I would tell my girls, I would intend to tell them, hey, go empty the dishwasher. But what I would say would be like, hey, go empty the thing with the water, like thing over there, just go empty it. I could never find my words. I have none of that on carnivore anymore. I'm able to just speak, and my decision making seems to be a lot better. And then on the other side, so I was diagnosed with IBS. They were like, you got to eat better. You got to try this little FODMAP diet. I tried all of that stuff. Every time I would eat, no matter what it would be, because like I said, I did keto leading into carnivore. And this was my keto, my daily meal for probably 6 months. I have a huge salad for lunch, a salad for dinner, lots of different vegetables. And then for dinner, I'd have some low carb vegetables like asparagus or Brussels sprouts or broccoli and a little piece of protein. And all of these things I'm describing to you, the IBS, the anxiety, inflammation in my elbows and the foot pain, all of those things I had eating that way. I get so many people commenting now and they're like, eating meat didn't do this for you. It's just because you eliminated all that other stuff. If you just eat vegetables, you would feel the same. I completely disagree with that. And I know it for a fact because I've tested it on myself. I did keto for years on and off, very strictly too. I wasn't cheating or anything. I was pretty much eating like they're describing, other than having a little bit of protein with it. And I had all of these issues. So the IBS, the stomach issues, so many people have approached me on carnivore now and they're like, oh, you lost so much weight. It's great. I'm like, yes, it's great. But all of these other things I've overcome, like the anxiety, the stomach issues, the acid reflux. I've told so many people this in person, And it's crazy how many people are like, hey, I have all of those issues too. My stomach is always gurgling and bubbling, and I'm always feel inflamed and bloated, and I'm always having issues like that. And I used to walk around like that forever. Like I said, I thought it was just the normal thing. One of the biggest things besides all of that, though, was the arthritis in my foot. Right now, I have zero pain in my foot. And this was 18 months of excruciating pain. I did nothing last year. Now I'm exercising. I'm doing pull-ups. Every single morning now, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I immediately go outside and get sunlight. I'm doing pull-up. I couldn't do one pull-up before. If you gave me $1 million, I couldn't have done one pull-up. I'm doing pull-ups. I'm exercising. I'm jogging, putting impact on the foot. And there's zero pain in the foot anymore. And I avoided getting that surgery I was going to get to need as well. So yeah, just overall, like the cognitive ability has been huge. Like I said, I'm getting more work done because I'm not fatigued, but I'm making better decisions. I'm scheduling things better, and just everything's just so much easier, especially when you don't have all this anxiety. I'm meeting so many folks I wouldn't have met otherwise, and making connections with people I wouldn't have otherwise, because with the anxiety before, I would have avoided that at all costs.
Yeah, you mentioned, because you're talking to other people and they say, yeah, I've got that too. I'm very similar. You figure out how many people out there are not firing on all cylinders. They're clearly compromised in their clarity of thought, their physical ability. They're maybe in discomfort or pain constantly. And that's where a large segment of society lives in. And of course, we have companies more than happy to provide you pills for all those things, and at enormous profit nonetheless. Let me ask you about, so when you decided 115 days ago, I'm going to go carnivore, you mentioned now most of your families. What was the initial sort of, wife was like, what the hell are you doing? I'm sure she appreciated you stopped snoring. That probably made her happy as can be. But kids, family, what was the interaction with the family? Were they skeptical? Were they thinking you were a little crazy, or were they totally on board?
They were skeptical to a degree. I have an unusual family in the diet regard, because even when I was doing keto, everyone was all over the board. So my wife has been a vegetarian for years. My daughter Emma was strict vegan, not even vegetarian, strict vegan for 5 years. My other daughter Katie, she's done calorie counting. So it was just a nightmare before this. We were all over the board, where basically I want to eat something, I'm just going to go off on my own and make my own thing. So it was a little easier in that regard. My wife was very concerned, health issues. I have an irregular heartbeat, and I've been on heart medication for a long time. And so like with the thing, it's going to clog your arteries, you're going to die, those sort of concerns. But I had done so much research. I'm like, here, just sit down and watch this with me, and let's just get to the truth together. There's so much misinformation out there that we've just taken for years and years, and everyone believes these things to be true, and they're clearly not. So that helped as well. Other extended family and friends got a lot of comments. We had a thing, I think maybe around my 30-day, a big family get together, and people are like, that's great, but I want to see your LDL numbers, because you're gonna die of a heart attack. It's great you're having these results. The other big comment that drives me insane, and again, people mean, but I've gotten this comment from extended family when we've had get-togethers, is, why are you doing this? If you want to be healthier, you just have to eat in moderation. Everything will be fine if you eat in moderation. And one of my other carnivore epiphanies is, I dieted on keto, like I said, for years. I would gain weight, I would lose weight. I was up to 262 pounds, down to 230, gain it all back. The reason for that, I believe now in retrospect, was because I was trying to eat in moderation, which I think is a joke. The reason I think it's a joke is because carbs and sugar are an addictive drug. They light up your brain on an MRI just like a hard drug would. And some people can tolerate a little bit better, maybe just eat a little bit, but I couldn't have a little bit. So I would do pretty well on keto. I would lose some weight, and then I'd say, I'm going to go back to moderation, and I'd still be eating pretty clean, but I'd have some stuff that had a little bit more carbs in it or whatever. And before you'd know it, I'd be craving more of the carbs and more of the sugar, and then I would gain all of that weight back. Eating in moderation is something that's caused me a lot of issues over the years. I probably would have lost a bunch of weight and kept it off a long time ago if it wasn't for eating in moderation. But for the most part, they've been really supportive. And now 115 days later with my immediate family, it's amazing, because my daughter Emma, who is a vegan, like I said, she's been doing carnivore with me. And the biggest news is 4 days ago, my wife, who's been a vegetarian for years, she she said to me, I have this saying, Dr. Baker, I say, one of the great things with doing carnivore is this is a movie reference. Some people might not have seen this movie, but I'm the captain now. That's what it feels like on carnivore. This food, the sugar, this junk, the coffee, all this stuff that was in control of me. What are we going to eat? When are we going to eat? What's for dinner tonight? None of that anymore. I'm the captain. I'm in complete control. I've been saying that for a while. Some people on YouTube are getting a kick out of that. But my wife said to me 4 days ago, she said, I'm the captain now. And I thought she was just saying, I'm going to go back and do more keto now. I'm going to still have salads and vegetables. But she decided to start carnivore. And she tried 2 weeks ago. She had a little bit of chicken, a little bit of turkey, not good carnivore food to necessarily start out on, but I'm like, okay, this is good baby steps going from vegetarian. And she's been, for 4 days now, she's been eating the good stuff, beef and steak and meat. And it's still obviously very early, but she's been going for 4 days now. And it's so nice having multiple people on board when we can all buy the same food and cook together and eat together as a family again.
Yeah, it definitely makes it easier when family's on board to support. So I didn't realize this. I got a comment, and maybe you can expand upon this. One of our members says, hey, I want to let you know that I'm going carnivore because I heard you might be making a movie about that. Is there some truth to that? Are you planning on doing some sort of carnivore movie or something like that?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I was going to mention that. So I did the 30-day update YouTube video, and it's so inspiring getting all these comments. And I'm like, we need to reach more people. Here's my thing. As I have a ton of video background, been doing YouTube for 8 years, but besides that, my other business is videoing products for companies, and I do local business ads, and I love movies. And one of the things that, like I said, I've been doing keto for years. And the thing that got me onto keto was this documentary movie. It was called Fathead. I don't know if people here have heard of it. I'm not necessarily recommending it today. It was 10 years ago. It was really good back then. It was my first introduction to keto. And he was talking about Ansel Keys and how a lot of the studies are fake and the reasons and the truth behind them. And it really got me going on keto. And that documentary reached a lot of people. Again, this was 15, maybe 20 years ago. But right now I'm like, man, if there was just something on Netflix or Amazon Prime that would talk about carnivore, get the truth out there and show some real examples, I think we could reach so many more people. It's amazing what's happening on YouTube, but I think we're outliers, people that use YouTube so often. There's way more people that are probably on Netflix that don't use YouTube, or Amazon Prime, or one of these big streaming services. And so I got the idea. I'm like, I want to put together a carnivore diet documentary. And the point of it isn't to say everybody should do carnivore diet. The point is to put out these amazing examples where people are changing their lives, like Dante from Frigno Freedom, myself, my daughter, but there's so many other people reversing type 2 diabetes. Shawn, who you were just on, Intentional Carnivore, that guy's story is unbelievable. I'm friends with Shawn, Dr. Baker, and he's going to be participating in this documentary movie. And I said to him, Shawn, if we made a movie about your carnivore journey, people would get up out of my theater and they would walk out. There's no way they're going to believe that you lost 243 pounds, almost 250 pounds in 1 year. It's amazing. And yeah, I want to put together, we're in the process of it now, putting together a carnivore diet documentary. And the goal is to follow real people, show real examples, and not just people that are obese, but people that also are suffering from depression, anxiety, people that are trying to reverse type 2 diabetes, people with autoimmune disorders. And the other big one that I was working on last week. So we're outlining all of this, and it's all really coming together. I've got a documentary filmmaker who just sat down right next to me about a week ago. He came in, and one of the new things that I've been working on is the aging part of it. That's just been blowing my mind since I did my YouTube video. I have so many folks in their 60s, 70s, and 80s just thriving on carnivore diet for years. And they're all telling me the same thing. They're like, all of the people that are my age that I look at, they're bent over and they're sore and they have mobility issues and all sorts of problems. And these people are saying, like, sure, when you get old, you're going to have some of that. But to the extent that most people have it, it really doesn't have to be that way. It's mostly probably inflammation from the food they're eating. So that's going to be a big part of the documentary as well. I just interviewed a guy on my channel. It's not live yet, but he's 65 years old. He looks younger than me, and he's just thriving on carnivore diet. So that's going to be, another big part of it. So I want to show examples of real people. I want to document it over the course of a year and try to get it on one of these big streaming services. My ultimate goal is 20 years ago, when I had the worst depression, I was completely hopeless. And if I knew about carnivore then. It would have been, I can't imagine what my life would be now if I knew about this 20 years ago. And I know there's so many other people, like you were just saying, Dr. Baker, there's people walking around right now, and they don't even realize how much better their lives could be, suffering or having brain fog or having stomach issues. And it's their new normal. I want to be able to reach those people. So that's the purpose of the documentary. And then I'm hoping to, besides having the real people and the real examples, to also bring in some experts like yourself. I definitely don't want to put you on the spot, but if you're interested in participating in any way whatsoever, even if it's like on camera or if it's just showing you what we got and giving some feedback from you, it would be amazing. Something we could always talk about offline too. I don't want to put you on the spot, but
I don't mind. I'm happy to help in any way I can. I'm like I said, I think anybody that is trying to make the world a better place, and that's what I'm trying to do. So I think there's just a lot of synergy, and I think this is what it's, like I said, this is not going to come from the government. This is not going to come from the corporations. They're not going to be the ones that are going to be pushing us. It's going to be us little guys combining together and increasing our numbers to the point where we are a force that can't be denied. And I think that's thing. And like I said, even from day one, when I first started advocating for this, I said, it's not going to be up to one person. It's going to be up to many thousands and even millions of people. And so sure, anyway, I mean, give this, send me more details at some point. I'm happy to be on camera, not on camera. It doesn't really matter to me. But if I can help some way, I'd be happy to. So anyway, so there you go. Easy question. I'm pretty open to this stuff. Let me go to, I guess, so carnivore diet, what do you do? What's it look like to you? Because everybody has a little different takes on that. What are you eating every day? How do you feel? So on and so forth.
Sure. So the first week I made a plan where I'm going to spoil myself. I'm going to try to do this for 30 days. That was it. I was going to do 30 days and then I'm out. There's no way I can eat meat forever, but I budgeted it out and said the first week I'm going to get some good ribeyes and some better steaks. This is going to be hard to do. So I might as well treat myself these first couple of days. So I did a lot of nicer steaks the first few days. And I don't know if it's because I've done keto on and off for years, but I drank plenty of water, electrolytes. I never had the keto flu or any problems transitioning into carnivore. And then I started switching it up more, kind of the beef, butter, bacon, eggs. I was doing a lot of that, a lot of bacon and eggs and beef. And then I always feel better when I'm just getting the beef. And so, 27 days ago, I think it was on the math escapes. I think it was on day 90 or something. I was talking to Dante from Frigno Freedom, the gentleman I mentioned before who inspired me. And he was like, I'm just hitting day 900 of doing strictly lion diet. So I was like, oh, what the heck? I can do lion diet for 10 days. I've already done keto. I've advanced to carnivore. Lion diet is like the next one after that. I love eating steak. So I've been doing strictly lion diet now for 27 days. I usually have a big, like maybe 1.5 pounds of steak per day. It's funny. I'm copying you, Dr. Baker. So my wife she came in the other day and she was watching me watch a YouTube video, and it was of you with your big cutting board and your big knife cutting your steak. And she's like, oh, he's copying you. I was like, no, I'm copying him, because that's what I do every day now. I just got a new cutting board, a big, beautiful maple cutting board, but that's my plate, a big steak. And then just like you, I got the salt all around the cutting board. Oh, it's so good. People keep asking me 115 days. Aren't you sick of steak? 100% honest answer. Not at all. I look forward to it every day. I feel so good when I eat it. And so now on Lion, it's one meal a day. That's been for 27 days now. I've had one big, huge steak every day, right around noon or 1. And I'm not hungry at all. I don't eat anything else. I still have the energy. People always ask me on my channel too. They're like, you tell me exactly what you're eating and what you're doing. I'm like, it's really different for everybody. Because if you ask me the same question, maybe a month from now, maybe I'll be eating more because I still got a little bit of belly fat left to lose. So I think when I'm going into keto, I'm probably burning my own fat. But when that's gone, I might need to get some more fat. So maybe I'll eat more. But I always tell people everyone's different. The best advice is eat till you're comfortably full. I do that every day. And that's been one meal a day and I'm good to go.
Yeah, like I said, I've been eating on the cutting board for a while with a big old knife and the salt. It just makes it easy. It's less cleanup. You don't even have a dish. I literally, at the end of the day, I have one fork that I have to put in the dishwasher because I rinse the cutting board and the knife off and don't throw them in the dishwasher. And it's just, that's my dishes for the day. One fork. So it's crazy how much you save on, you don't produce as much chit-chat, trash. You don't have to cook as much. You save energy there. So it's actually, when all things are considered, it's actually quite it's quite economical and I think probably sustainable in that regard. One of the things that I think with the 1 meal a day type of thing, you'd mentioned you've been on a low FODMAP diet, you tried these other things. How has your appetite been with this? Because a lot of people, they struggle with whatever diet plan they're on, are like, I'm just hungry and I can't sustain that. But did you notice a big difference? Because when I first went on a ketogenic diet, I was quite impressed with my appetite was better. It was just like, I'm not hungry as much or all the time. With carnivore, it was a step in the even further in that direction. But have you noticed that, because you're right, the critics will say you could have got the exact same result with a balanced diet if you just got rid of junk food and eaten fruits and vegetables and lean protein, and that would be fine. You said, I've already tried that. As many of us in here have already tried that, and it didn't work for us. So has it been enlightening with regard to appetite regulation with this now?
Yes, for sure. It's a huge benefit too that I really didn't think about before. Yeah, I'm not, other than the first couple of days adapting and getting into carnivore, I did have some cravings then. One thing that was tough for me is at the movie theater here, I used to test the popcorn every single night for a year. We got our popcorn machines from the 1950s, and we pride ourselves in having really good popcorn. I've done that a couple times over the last 115 days where I've grabbed for them. Oh, wait a minute. Can't do that anymore. If I had one craving, it would have been popcorn, but almost all the cravings are gone. It's just completely a 180 difference between before. And it makes sense now, because before I would eat some breakfast or something, and it was always every single day, like 2 hours later, oh, I'm so hungry again. In retrospect, that was the sugar addiction. And it was my insulin levels were going up and down throughout the day, and I was craving more sugar. Yeah, there's been times over the last 115 days where I had to remind myself, like, oh, I didn't eat anything yet. I'm pretty regular online now, but when I was just doing carnivore, there's probably 2 or 3 days where I got to 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh, geez, I've just been working all day. I didn't even eat anything yet. It's amazing. And then to your point, you get one fork and you wash off the cutting board and that's it. People keep saying this to me too. Must be nice to be able to afford steak all the time. And I've run the numbers. I think I'm at half of what I was paying for before, when you honestly really do the math, because it was so much junk food before. Like, you'd have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Then you'd have the little snacks. You'd eat a granola bar 2 hours after breakfast because you're crashing, maybe some fruit in the afternoon. You go to Starbucks, you could spend like $10, beer or soda or popcorn or snack food or junk food, all of these things. And the biggest thing I think people don't calculate into it, all of those things I just mentioned, by the way, none of them anymore. All of those are gone. That's a lot of cost right there. There was so much waste before. Being on a homesteader, we were trying to grow our own food, and we try to save things, preserve things. I don't like throwing things out, but I was throwing out so much stuff before. I had good intentions. Oh, I'm going to go get a big thing of lettuce and we're going to have a salad. And you go in there and the salad's all brown and slimy, end up throwing half of it out. I throw nothing out on carnivore diet. Even the bones, we save the bones and make bone broth out of it. So if you account for all of that waste, and then that doesn't even get into my pills. I have this container of pills from 10 years. It's this big. There's 20 different pills in there. I'm on none of them anymore. 0 pills right now. Those were expensive. And I have acid reflux. They give me a pill. I'm like, why do I got to keep getting refills? Shouldn't this just fix the acid reflux? I think it was like a temporary Band-Aid. Feels a little bit better for now. I have 0 acid reflux. So all the money I'm saving from the pills, and then the time too. It's noon. I make myself a steak. I eat the steak. I wash the cutting board, wash the fork, and I'm done. Before this, it was always like, what are we going to eat? Oh, let's look up some recipe with 50 different ingredients, rummaging through the cabinets, got to run to the store, grab something, just hours and hours wasted. All that time now I have to do other things that I enjoy doing. So yeah, I've had a lot of people on my channel say that too. I don't know how to get over those cravings. I don't know. I just think if you get over that initial hump and you get over that sugar addiction and your body gets into ketosis, that's for me when it seemed like those cravings go away and I don't think about it anymore. Some people will do carnivore though, and they'll say, oh, I got to keep my diet soda, or I got to keep this or that. I'm very strict on it. I think if I still had some diet soda with some artificial sweeteners in it or something like that, I would still be craving the sugar and I'd still have some of those cravings.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's absolutely, when I talk to people, when I do consultations with people and they ask me about this, and the first thing I say is, hey, you've got to fix this food addiction craving issue, or you're never going to be successful long term. So you got to address that right away. And I think there's ways to do that. During your journey, reflux, arthritis, pain, depression, obesity, all these things that you had, I assume you've seen physicians, healthcare providers. throughout that time. Was there any point where they gave you advice on how to do something nutrition lifestyle wise, or was it just here's a pill for this? Was there any discussion at all? And if so, what was it?
Yeah, that's a great question. This one gets me really fired up too. Not for myself, but for my daughter, Lily. There was never, I have had doctors say, you just got to lose some weight. You got to eat better. When I had the depression, for example, I think the truth is with the depression now, I was getting bad sleep. I think I was getting bad sleep from my diet and all the junk I was eating and my body trying to process through all this garbage and the sugar causing inflammation. I think the other thing was too, of course, I'm not a doctor, but meat was demonized my whole life. So I hardly ate any meat before. And I've heard like you get some more cholesterol back in your system. That can help balance your hormones. That can help with your sleep and that can help with depression. So what I wish a doctor would have told me before is, hey, instead of taking these horrible SSRIs that are going to turn you into a zombie. And by the way, when I went in for that at first appointment, they're like, I know you're suicidally depressed. You have the worst depression of your life. We can try this SSRI. It probably won't work. We might have to try something else. And you got to give it 3 months. Once the 3 months are up, we'll know if it works or not. Of course, 3 months went by and it didn't work. And then they're like, we'll just have to up the dosage. I did that for a year and a half. I wish they would have told me, hey, listen, whatever you're eating is causing massive inflammation in your body. And you're not getting enough cholesterol. Your hormones are out of balance. You need to be eating a diet that's going to fix those things. That would have fixed me. And I wouldn't have had to suffer with all that stuff for years. But that's the closest I've ever had. When I had the IBS, they said, try this low FODMAP diet, like a big list of avoid this, try this, do this. And I genuinely tried that for a while and I didn't notice really any changes from it. And then you're still eating some of those carbs and some of that stuff. And then it starts creeping back in. The thing that really fires me up, though, is my 18-year-old daughter, Lily. She had open heart surgery at age 13. She had 2 blood clots right when COVID started. This was at the beginning, like the first 3 days when you turn the news on and there was like, they're pulling semis up to hospitals and it was just, no one knew what was going on then. So it was a very scary time this first couple of days. She passed out in her house. Her face was white. Her lips were purple. She couldn't breathe. We had to call an ambulance. I thought she was dying from the pandemic that was going on, but it turned out she ended up with 2 blood clots. And after that, she suffered for years and years with this horrible skin condition. It's called HS. It looks like acne. She had it all over her chest, right where her open heart surgery incision was. It was causing the incision not to heal properly. She had it all over her back. And my wife and I are like, this poor kid, she's just had so many issues. The open heart surgery, she survived the blood clots, thankfully. She had to take a helicopter to Madison to the hospital and they saved her life. But she had her oxygen saturation was like non-existent. She was very close to dying from those blood clots, which is a long story, but those were due to medication she was taking that she probably shouldn't have been on in retrospect. And so then this HS she started having, my wife and I took her to a dermatologist and we're like, we don't know what is causing this HS, but we can give her this cream. So she tried this cream. It did nothing. She tried that for months. We took her to another one. And long story short, over the course of maybe 4 or 5 years, my wife and I took her to experts, specialists, like the best dermatologists we could find. One of them tried a cream. One of them tried a pill. Another one tried an injection. The last one, and nothing worked. And nobody said anything about diet to Lily. And this poor kid, like this was about a year ago, she was crying to me and her mom. She's, I just want to die. This hurts so bad. I'm going to all these doctors. Nobody's helping me. It's worse. It's getting worse than what it was. And the last dermatologist we took her to was like a couple hours away. We were spending thousands of dollars going to all these specialists. They're like, we can give her this injection, but it's going to completely shut down her immune system and maybe it'll work. And I was like, there's no way. So when I was thinking about starting Carnivore, Lily was also on my mind. She's 18 because I saw Michaela Peterson and all of her reversals on Carnivore. And I've heard from so many other people with like skin issues. So on my day, I was into Carnivore maybe a week or 10 days. I said to Lily, I was like, I think what's causing this is something you're eating. I'm not telling you, Lily, you're 18. I'm like, you can do whatever you want. I'm not saying go eat meat for 30 days, but I'm getting these amazing results and I'm only 10 days into it. I was like, just eliminate all those things, eat meat and see if it starts clearing up. I think that will help you. And she decided to do it. And after 8 days, half of her back was completely cleared up. She went on to do Carnivore with me she's still doing it, but she went on day 30, completely gone. No HS after suffering with it for years and years. And now one of those dermatologists suggested diet. Every one of them was the same thing. We don't know that she's teenagers. They got hormones. They get acne. You just have these things. It's unexplainable is basically what was told to me from 5 different dermatologists. And so, yeah, 8 days on carnivore diet, it started clearing up. It's completely gone now after years. She doesn't have any of it. And then, by the way, too, that was huge. Would have taken that by itself, but all of the other improvements she had after 30 days on carnivore, just amazing. She had some acne that cleared up. She lost a whole bunch of weight. Her mood improved drastically. She came out of her bedroom one night and my wife and I just looked at each other. Can't even recognize her anymore. She's got that carnivore glow, the zen. Your face is like you're smiling and you're happy and you can just see it's like a youthful sort of healthy look. I see it on a lot of carnivores that you don't see on other people that are more fatigued and a little bit pale, but it's been life-changing. I'm so happy for Lily too, because she now has this in her toolbox and she's still doing carnivore. She did lion for a little while. She's still doing carnivore with me, but if she ever falls off the wagon or goes back, at least she has this in her toolbox and she knows that she can come back to this and it's something that's going to help her on all fronts.
Yeah, it's interesting because this HS or hidradenitis suppurativa is an autoimmune condition. And interestingly, there's actually a paper in the literature, a case report on that exact condition cured with carnivore. So it's actually in the medical literature. And I know other people that have had HS and carnivore has cleared it up for sure. So it's interesting that these physicians have no clue on this stuff. They're not trained on it. They don't know any better. They've been educated by the pharmaceutical industry and that's all they know. So you can't blame them in a way, but at some point you got to do what's right for you and just, hey, you're not helping me. You're just giving me drugs that don't work. Let me do something else. So good for you for finding that. Unfortunately, we're out of time, man. This has been wonderful, Kerry, talking with you. Thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for spreading the word. I look forward to your filmmaking efforts, and I enjoyed spending time with you. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We'll be back again tomorrow. Kerry, is there anything you want to say before we go? Be happy to have you here.
No, just thank you so much for everything you're doing and putting the good word out there. I really appreciate it. It's changed my life, and if it wasn't for you and other doctors like you, I would probably still be eating the way I was and not feeling so good. So thank you sincerely very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Y'all take care. Take care. Bye-bye.